Okay, so the housing market, it's confusing right now. Like on the one hand, prices are still really high, but we are seeing some signs that things are maybe starting to shift a little bit more towards buyers. And for those buyers, who are ready, this shift, it really could mean like some serious bargaining power. Prices are still climbing, but that growth has really slowed down like considerably. We're seeing median home price growth put that down to just 3.7%. And that's over the past 4 weeks. I mean, it might not seem like a huge difference, but in a market that's been so hot for so long, it's a sign that maybe things are starting to cool down. And those mortgage rates that everyone was freaking out about, they've actually dipped a bit from their peak back in January. We're seeing averages now around 6.87% for a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. But even with these little glimmers of hope, buying a home is still a massive hurdle for a lot of people. I mean, think about it. We're living in a time where economic uncertainty is basically the norm. You turn on the news and it's another headline about trade wars or government spending, potential changes that could really rock the boat. And for anyone thinking about buying a home, that kind of uncertainty, it can be really paralyzing. Like those federal layoffs not that long ago. I mean, that kind of news sends ripples of anxiety through entire industries. If you're connected to government work in any way, whether directly or even through contracts, you're probably thinking twice about job security. And when you're not sure about your financial future, dropping a huge chunk of change on a house, it just seems really risky. And this economic anxiety, it isn't just limited to people connected to the government. We're all feeling it. At the grocery store, the gas pump, like everywhere. Inflation is a real concern, and it's making people think twice about taking on big financial commitments like buying a house. Okay, but let's not like dwell on all the negative stuff. There's good news out there too for buyers who are like ready to jump into the market. So first off, we're seeing more inventory. More houses are popping up. This means more choices and more power for you to negotiate to get a better deal. Just last month, new listings were up almost 5%. Compared to last year at this time, more houses on the market means sellers can't be as picky. And that's where you as the buyer come in. And get this, sellers are actually starting to offer discounts. I know, right? Sounds crazy after the past few years. But the typical home is selling for about 2% below its asking price. That's like the biggest discount in 2 years. So what does this mean for you? It means it's a good time to get out there, find a house that you love. And, don't be afraid to negotiate. Remember all those negotiation tactics we talked about? Well, here's where they come into play. Let's say you find a house and you love it, but the seller won't budge on the price. Well, instead of walking away, think about what else you can negotiate. Closing costs, for example, they can add up to thousands of dollars. Imagine if the seller covered those expenses. That's a lot of money back in your pocket right away. And while we're at it, why not see if they'll help with your buyer's agent fees? Those fees can cost you like a couple of percent of the purchase price, so even a small concession from the seller can help. Now, if you want to explore other options, don't rule out new construction. Builders are often more willing to work with buyers. In a market that's shifting like this, they might offer incentives like upgrades or even help you get a better interest rate on your mortgage. Okay, so where do you stand after hearing all this? Are you feeling all this like economic uncertainty, or are you feeling ready to jump in and take advantage? I mean, there's no right answer. It really all comes down to your situation, and what feels right for you. But before we go, I want to leave you with something to think about. Okay, so imagine this. You're at the negotiating table with a seller, and you have the power to negotiate anything besides the price. What would you ask for? I mean, would you want those fancy new appliances? Or like a finished basement, maybe even a brand new roof? So you don't have to think about it for years. The point is, in a market like this, you have more options than you think. So get creative, and don't be afraid to ask for what you want. You might be surprised what you can get.